Crunchbang has always been one of my favorite distributions, and I was really sad to see it go when the project was discontinued. Crunchbang++ is a continuation of Crunchbang. It's not from the original developer, but it is taking the essence of Crunchbang and keeping it alive, because Crunchbang++ is pretty much exactly the same as Crunchbang was. So I reviewed Crunchbang++ version 9 a while back, and I haven't had a chance to check out the latest version, version 10, which was recently released. Actually, if I remember correctly, pretty close to when Debian 10 was released, if not pretty much exactly the same time. They'd wasted no time at all. And I've been eager to try it out. I haven't had a chance to do so. So in this video, I'm going to do things a little bit interesting. So this is kind of like a first impressions video. But what I'm actually going to do is I'm going to wipe this laptop right here. This is one of two production laptops. My Galago Pro is my daily driver. I also use this one as well. And I wanted to do a little experiment. Pop! OS is my favorite distribution of all. It's what I use on all of my laptops. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to wipe this one, and I'm going to put Crunchbang++ version 10 on this laptop, and I'm going to use it for a week. Now, I always use distributions for a while before coming up with an opinion, but what I'm actually going to do is, rather than put this on my test machine, I thought it'd be cool to put this on an actual machine I use regularly and kind of see what the experience is like. So the first part of this video is going to be first impressions. And then after a week, I'm going to record the second half of this video, and I'm going to give you my thoughts after having used it for a while. It's not going to be a two-part video. I'm going to jumble this all into one video and edit it together, but you're going to see my first impressions first, and then I'm going to fast forward to a week and cut into my thoughts of using Crunchbang++ after some time and how it's held up with my daily work. So here's the website, crunchbangplus.org. You see that right up here at the top. So if you want to download it, they have a 64-bit version and a 32-bit version. I'm going to be downloading the 64-bit version, and that's what I recommend you download as well, unless you have a machine that only supports 32-bit, like a netbook. But most of the machines that people think are only 32-bit capable are actually 64-bit capable. For most people, I think this is the way to go. So you go here to download, and you get this ISO image, and when you download it, you just flash it to a flash drive. I've already done that, so I've already downloaded it. I've created my bootable flash media with this flash drive right here. So let's go ahead and reboot my laptop. Let's wipe it and install Crunchbang++. So let's reboot. All right, here goes. Choose my external drive. It calls it a hard drive. It's a flash drive. I guess same difference as far as this is concerned. Okay, as you can see, we have some options here. So I have live system with failsafe mode. I can start the installer, or I can actually configure some advanced options. Now in my case, I'm actually going to start the installer. Let's go ahead and install it. All right, so I apologize for how small everything is on the screen here, but I'm going to go ahead and kind of go through this pretty quickly, because unless something has changed a lot, I'm going to basically accept the defaults. I don't imagine that the installer has changed all that much since the previous version, but I guess we'll see. So I have an option of choosing my wired or wireless card as a laptop. So let's see if wireless works. I'm going to go ahead and select my network. Okay, WPA. Looks like it worked. So Debian can sometimes be a pain to get networking to work, especially if you have hardware that doesn't have free software available for drivers. But it doesn't look like that's any issue here. So you can see that it defaulted to the hostname of Crusader, and that's because I have a DHCP server with DHCP reservations that actually has all the host names set. So anytime one of my machines is basically added to the network, the hostname is configured automatically. You'll probably see something like Crunchbang or Debian here, but you could change it to whatever you want. And again, the domain is detecting that, so I'll leave this one and go to continue. I always encrypt my laptops, and it'll be interesting to see if they configured the boot screen when it prompts for the password or if they're just using text mode. So I'll choose this. I'll choose my hard drive here, which this is the correct one. I'm going to choose a separate home partition. I'm just curious how they're going to divide this up. I think it'll be interesting to check that out. And let's go. I'm going to go ahead and cancel this. And then I'll set my encryption passphrase. I really like this. I think that all distributions that offer encrypted LVM or just LVM in general should give you the option to not use the entire hard drive, because that gives you space for snapshots, which is actually something that I do. I use LVM snapshots. I even have a video on how to do that on Arch. It's pretty much the same on other distributions. So I get kind of annoyed when other distributions don't give you this option. It's a Debian thing, and I'm glad to see that it's here in Crunchbang as well. So I'm going to give it just a little less. Continue. Confirm. Confirm again. Again, just choosing defaults. Well, there you go. So the installation is all set. So I'm going to go ahead and reboot, and moment of truth, we're going to see if all the hardware on this laptop works out of the box. I'll click continue to reboot. Okay, so here we see the unlock prompt. So I'm going to go ahead and type that in. And there we go. So as you saw, there was no boot splash. Now that's not really a big deal for me. I do feel like it's more professional when a distribution has one. And I think that Crunchbang++ actually does have a boot splash. It could be the case that since I encrypted the drive, that the boot splash animation doesn't show up. I vaguely remember that might have been the case in version 9. But if you guys install Crunchbang++ 10 and you don't choose encryption, let me know in the comments below if you do see a boot splash. Okay, so here we are at the first login. And one thing that's pretty cool is that I'm already logged in here to my Wi-Fi. And that's awesome, because I was thinking I would probably have to input my credentials again. If you recall, when I was going through the installation, I basically put in the password for my wireless network, and that carried over to the installation. It's just little things like that that I think go a long way. So now that I know that I'm connected to the internet, I could go through this first run wizard that you see on the screen right here. But what I'm going to do is I'm going to make it a little bit bigger just to make sure that if any of you are vision impaired, you'll still be able to see it, because the text is kind of small. Okay, so here we go. Basically, this is a welcome screen, and it's essentially the same as any other distribution. When you first log in, you get a welcome screen that gives you some things that you can configure. But I really love this one. I think it's my favorite, at least from a geeky point of view, because it's just a text mode terminal screen. And at the end of the day, you really don't need more than that. So I think this is just really awesome. So it says press any key to continue. Would you like to update your sources? And Y is in caps, so that's default, so I'll press enter. Would you like to update? Sure. Now it's asking me if I would like to install printer support. Normally I say no in my reviews, but since I am using this as my day-to-day driver, I am going to do that. I hope it is able to set up my brother printer. I guess we'll see. It's always been kind of a pain for me and everything except for Pop! OS. So let's just see what happens. It's asking me if I would like to install Java support. No, I actually have no use for that. LibreOffice. Normally I would say yes in my reviews, but I don't want an older version, which is what Debian's mostly going to come with. So I'm going to say no. So now it's asking, would you like to view these options and screens? It's basically about development packages. I'll basically check them out. Why not? I'll say no, I don't need that one. For version control tools, I have my own scripts that'll install that. SSH, yes, I would like that. I don't need a LAMP stack. I'm not going to be creating Debian packages, and I'm all set. So if you recall, during the installation, I chose to have my home partition separate. So I'm curious to see how much space they allocated to the root file system, my home partition, and things like that. So let's take a quick look. Reopen a terminal. And let's see what happens. df-h. So the root file system is about 28 gigabytes. And then the rest is allocated to home. Now, of course, that's much less than the total capacity of my drive. If you recall, I wanted some of that space to be unallocated so I could use that for snapshots. So I'll clear the screen. So if I do sudo vg display, I scroll up here to the top, you can see kind of the information for the volume group. It named it hostname -vg. It's LVM2. The volume group size is 476 gigabytes, but there's 93 that aren't used that I can actually use for snapshots, which is exactly what I intend to use that for. I'm going to go ahead and minimize this. And I really like this, by the way. Minimizing is one thing. I mean, I can minimize here, and it goes to the panel. But I can also do a window shade, which is one of those features that I think is missing from a lot of desktop environments. I really like that. If I don't want to minimize it, but I want to get it out of the way, that's just awesome. So if you haven't used OpenBox before, or any distribution that uses OpenBox as its graphical user interface, I'll give you a really quick overview. OpenBox is not a desktop environment. It's a window manager. A desktop environment has all kinds of features like screen switching, a place where you could connect to networks, a settings screen, its own file manager, a panel. I could go on. Think of a desktop environment as a full-featured graphical user interface. Now, a window manager has very few features, if any. Actually, most of them pretty much don't. A window manager is essentially a container to hold windows that you can just move around the screen. And what Crunchbang has done is added some new features to OpenBox to give it some of the features that a desktop environment would have that OpenBox itself wouldn't normally have if you were to install it yourself. So if you just installed OpenBox on your computer, not from Crunchbang, but you just use your package manager, install OpenBox, and then you log in and select OpenBox as your session, you won't have a panel, you won't have a clock, you won't have this conky right here, CONKY, which is default with Crunchbang. You won't have that. You're most likely not going to have wallpaper either. You're going to have basically nothing. What you will have is a right-click menu, and you'll have some default selections here. This right-click menu, there's a way to make it dynamically create itself, but most don't. This is actually hard-coded. So if you install OpenBox, you'll have links to programs, like for example, as terminal. If I click on it, a terminal appears. That's because the developers of Crunchbang++ made sure to customize this menu. But if you were to install OpenBox, you would get a sample menu, which may or may not have the applications installed that you have options for. This is going to be a text file that you would edit. So far, that might sound kind of annoying, right? But one of the reasons why I like this is because all of the customization is in text files. You could back up those text files. You could throw them in Git, whatever it is you want to do to store them, put them on a flash drive, and you could easily restore all your settings. So up here we have the Tint to panel, which is something that Crunchbang actually includes by default. We have different workspaces. You can see that it's tabbed, or it basically simulates tabs. So now that I'm on workspace 2, I can open up the file manager, for example. This is the Thunar file manager, and now it's on this workspace. I can also drag it over between the two. I can customize this to add additional workspaces, and I probably will. We have this system tray here, which is part of Tint 2. Not something you get by default with OpenBox, but they went ahead and included it. From the right-click menu, we can see some of the applications we get installed by default. So I can, for example, choose web browser. And this is Firefox, which is the Debian default. And if I remember correctly, we're on ESR, which right here says ESR. But here it is. This is Firefox. If you've ever used Firefox before, you know exactly what to expect. Love the window shading feature. So going from here, we have GIMP installed by default. This is what I use for all the video thumbnails on my channel. Yeah, I know they're not great, but you know, I'm trying, and they're all done through here. Media player. Here's VLC, which is a great choice. Text editor. We have Genie. I love this text editor. It is one of my absolute favorites. I always use command line text editors, but if I'm ever going to use a graphical text editor, definitely should be this one. There's all kinds of cool tools that are built in. For example, if you're writing a Python script, you can click build, and there's an execute option right here. So if this is a Python script and you mark it executable, and then you click on that, then it'll show up. As a matter of fact, I'm going to show you that right now. Why not? So don't worry about what I'm about to type. I just want to show you an example of developing in Genie. So user bin env python 3. I'm going to do simply print hello world. Let's save it and let's execute it. Go to build and execute. And you can see that it executed right here. And actually, to make it even simpler, I can simply just press F5 and it executes it just like that. So if you're doing any kind of development work, this text editor is really, really awesome. Go ahead and close out of all this. And another thing to show you guys is settings, which is probably not what you're expecting, but I'll just give you an example. There's edit config file on a lot of these. So that'll bring up the config file for the thing that you want to customize. And you just need to Google examples here. So it's a little bit harder to customize Crunchbang because of the components it installed, are things that are configured via text files. But again, I like it because you can, yeah, it's more work, but you just simply back them up and, you can easily restore them. Okay, so I'm going to close out this part of the video. Crunchbang++ version 10 to me doesn't look any different than the previous version. I mean, there's some minor differences for sure, but the whole point of this release is getting it updated with the latest Debian Buster base, and they've done that. And they didn't really need to make any changes. I think everything is fine. This isn't for people that like change. This distribution is basically for people that just want a static development environment, if you will. So what I'm going to do now is I'm just going to go ahead and use this over the course of a week. And then I will resume this video and record the next section after I've had some more time to spend with this release. I'll see you back here as soon as that's happened. All right, so I've been spending a great deal of time with Crunchbang++. I promised I would use this for at least a week. It's actually been quite a bit more than that because I haven't had a chance to record this part of the video until now. I think it's actually getting closer to 2 weeks, if not exactly 2 weeks at this point. So that just means that I got to spend more time with this, and that's great because I like this distribution quite a bit. So I'm going to give you my final thoughts on this new release. But before I do, obviously you're probably noticing that the camera quality is different. Audio quality might be different. It might be a little jarring to see a second half of a video, with different video and audio quality, but I changed the camera. I'm just testing different cameras to see which looks better. I think this one probably looks better than the other one. I bought new lighting, and I also rearranged the office a little bit. So in the amount of time that I've been using Crunchbang++, I've also changed my office around a little bit as well. But I just wanted to let you guys know why the video and audio quality is different. But with that out of the way, let's go ahead and dive back into Crunchbang. I did make a few changes, but I didn't want to make too many because I love the simple nature of Crunchbang. and I didn't want to customize it too much and lose that look and feel. You could tell right away that I customized the panel. Again, this is the Tint 2 panel. We have different workspaces, and they're presented as tabs, even though they're just workspaces like you would get in any other desktop environment or window manager. But you can see here I customized them. I have 4 here instead of the default of 2, and I changed the labels. This is just something that I like to do, to have designated workspaces for each type of activity. So, mail, messaging and whatnot, browsing the web. Administrative work I put right here, and then other stuff here on the last one. I could put more labels than this, but then it just kind of tends to get crowded. So I did customize that. I also added this icon right here, which is Synapse. If I do Control Space, this nifty little menu comes up where I could just start typing the name of an application. So, for example, Firefox, and press enter, and it opens. And the reason why I like this is because with OpenBox, this menu is not dynamic. Yes, there is a way to make a dynamic menu, but that's just not what Crunchbang gives you. You could, create a dynamic menu, but I found it easier just to install Synapse and just go through these menus and then manually add things to it. So like I showed you, I could just do Control Space, and I could type the name of an application, press enter. Here I have the text editor Genie on my screen. You will see it up here in the system tray. And then that just allows you to activate it with Control Space. And Control Space is the default. You can change that, of course. You just click this little dot right here and then go to Preferences, and you'll see Control Space is listed. Speaking of customization, here we have Firefox. Now, Firefox is the default browser, but it's Firefox ESR, which I'm not currently a fan of because I find it to be a bit too archaic. It's just old, which is the point. You want something more stable, and Debian is based on stability. At least Debian Stable is, which is what Crunchbang is based on. But I wanted something newer. So basically, you can see here, go to Help About. It's running Firefox 69.0.1, and that's Firefox Quantum. And the way I did that is just by downloading the tarball from Mozilla, and I just extracted it. I have a video on my channel that goes over how to do this. So if you'd like to also have the latest version of Firefox, you can follow that video to accomplish that. I imagine at some time in the future, maybe Firefox Quantum, the normal release, will be available maybe in Debian backports or something. But as of the time I'm recording this video, the last time I looked at it, I didn't see it there. So as of this time, this is pretty much the only way to do it. Although by the time you're seeing this video, I wouldn't be surprised if there's a different way of doing that or a package is available. But again, check out that video if you want to walk through on how I accomplish that. Also, in terms of customization, I'll bring up a terminal here. And you can see I believe this is called NeoFetch. It just basically shows you some information that I basically put this on all of my Linux installs. Now, this conky overlay here on the right, it's always shown a lot of the same information here, like RAM usage and CPU usage and whatnot. This shows even more. It's just something I put in the terminal to just, basically make it show me even more information. But I've also customized the font, so I'm going to go ahead and make this larger so you can see the difference better. This is using the Terminus font. Just look at it. I love it. I was customizing fonts. I might even put this on all my other Linux distributions, but I've always liked this font. It's so clear and easy to read in the terminal. So basically, I installed the package, the Terminus font package. And then in Preferences, you can see right here it says Terminus Regular 14. So that's the font that I customized here. This is the Terminator terminal that comes default with Crunchbang. So I just wanted a better font, although the font it comes with is really not a problem. So overall, my experience with Crunchbang++ over the time that I've spent with it, which again is closer to 2 weeks at this point, has been great. I haven't run into any problems except for one, and I'm hesitant to call this a problem. It's just kind of like one of those, quirks about running a window manager versus a desktop environment. But, it's just one of those things. Let me explain. And what I'm talking about is screen switching. Now, I can't expect automatic screen switching in Crunchbang or OpenBox because, again, This is a window manager, not a desktop environment. But why would I need that, and what am I talking about? Well, right here, I don't know if you can see it in the camera here, but I have this USB-C dock, which provides power. Basically has this little power cable right here, a USB-C cable that brings in the power. And power, this laptop model is able to charge over USB-C. Not all of them can, but this one does. And you can see right here I have my HDMI cable. I could also plug in my keyboard and mouse because I have a USB 3 ports on there as well. And what that allows me to do is connect this one cable, and it connects my display, potentially keyboard, mouse, everything off of one cable, even charges the laptop. So I don't have to have a bunch of cables attached to the laptop, which is very cool. But OpenBox is not going to automatically see that you have a display attached to your dock and then switch to it. Yes, you can make that happen automatically by building a customized script. I just haven't gotten around to doing that. But in my use case, I really like the idea of basically having a desktop mode where I have my laptop lid closed, I plug in this cable, and then basically my external display, keyboard and mouse, power, everything is connected all at once. I use it as a desktop. I disconnect this one cable, then I just go about my day and use it portably. Now that doesn't work out of the box with OpenBox. Again, we can't expect it. It's a window manager. But things like this you have to customize manually. I just haven't gotten around to that. So this is a downside to me, but I'm hesitant to call it a downside because we can't expect too much out of a window manager. So as you can see, the default look and feel of Crunchbang is amazing. It's just so simple, but very effective. Now, of course, there's other OpenBox distributions, and I've also reviewed them on my channel. For example, we have the Manjaro OpenBox edition. We have Bunsen Labs. Now, Bunsen Labs, as far as I remember, is pretty much the official blessed Crunchbang replacement when Crunchbang itself went away. I don't really agree with that, though, because Bunsen Labs is a great distribution, but it's not Crunchbang. They've gone into their own direction. They maintain some of what makes Crunchbang great, but then they add a bunch more things to it, making it overly complicated. And it just doesn't match the aesthetic of Crunchbang as well as Crunchbang Plus does. Now, in addition to that, Bunsen Labs, as of the time I'm recording this video, their Buster release is still not out yet. So with Crunchbang Plus, not only is it closer to classic Crunchbang, almost exactly the same, but they're first on the scene with a Debian Buster release. So at this point, I just have to say I really do feel Crunchbang Plus is the best OpenBox distribution available today. At least it's the most Crunchbang-like because, again, it's essentially exactly the same. So if you want to recreate that experience, this is definitely the way to go. And if you're looking for an OpenBox distribution, then I do feel like this is also the best way to go. So I definitely recommend that you guys check out Crunchbang Plus. I feel like the fact that it's not more well known is a crime. It's such a great distribution, especially for those of you on old machines that want to squeeze out all the, juice out of your processor and RAM without, window managed or desktop environment getting in the way. It definitely serves that purpose. But this laptop right here, this is a Core i7 machine with an SSD and 24 gigs of RAM. It's no slouch, so I don't need to run a stripped down distribution on this thing. But, running something like this just leaves more of the CPU and RAM available at my disposal and actually makes my machine feel faster. So definitely check out Crunchbang Plus. I hope that this review gives them more attention and makes them more popular because I do feel that this distribution really needs more attention. So please check it out. With that out of the way, I will have more videos for you guys very soon. If you haven't already done so, please subscribe, and I will see you in the next video. Thanks for checking out my video. I really appreciate it. If you found it useful, click that like button. And if you haven't already done so, make sure you subscribe so you'll see the latest content as soon as it becomes available. If you want to help me out, there's links down below for my Patreon page, as well as links for purchasing my Linux books and also my affiliate store, which has a listing of Linux-compatible hardware that I've actually tested personally. Thanks again for watching, and I'll see you in the next video.